Hey everybody, welcome to day 16 of Get Out of the Rat Race. I'm Beth Campbell, career coach and mentor, former corporate captive, now helping you find your work wonderland. If you need somebody to guide you one-on-one through a career or life challenge, send me a message or go to bethannecampbell.com/coachme. Thank you so much for being here. If you're watching live, let me know you're here in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, please give me a #replay. And of course, make sure you let me know if you have any questions or feedback so I can address it on a future episode. Actually, today's the 16th, so on the 18th, I'm having my Q&A catch up, so that'll be fun. I had to take my sip of coffee. My husband reminded me that apparently now it's my signature thing to take a sip at the beginning of the lives, and I didn't do that yesterday, so sorry, honey. Appreciate the feedback on that. So today we are going to talk about different leadership types and how to deal with them. And I'm just going to tell you, this is going to be a little fun, a little tongue-in-cheek, and there will be some truth to this, but not in like a knot in the stomach sort of way. I had this idea once to do one of those online quizzes. Remember when online quizzes were really big? By the way, the Lord of the Rings character that I most like is Aragorn, in case you were wondering. One of the more popular quizzes of probably 10 years ago. And so I had this idea for a quiz, and I thought I should do one on like just fun leadership types that are based on real people and based on real types of leaders, but just in fun. So that's kind of what this is based on. But again, there will be some truth in there where you go, yeah, I know that person. So there are many types of managers and leaders out there, and most of us have experienced a variety. So I talked a couple days ago about the awesome direct bosses that I've had, except for one in 23 years. I've had 22 years of great bosses. But I've worked indirectly for and on projects and assignments with some who are not badasses by any stretch. And they're all over the place as far as style and personality and how they treat people. Some are good or great, like my first boss. Some are bad. Some are just downright ugly. There are almost as many types of leaders as there are leaders, but in my experience, most of them fall into a handful of categories, and so I'm going to run through those shortly. So it is important to understand who you're working for because how you deal with different leadership types will be different. So with my first awesome boss, I could be brutally honest, no fear of retaliation whatsoever because he was a badass boss. It was not the same with others, and it's not the same probably with some of you for the people that you report to or reported to directly or indirectly. So if you watched day 5 when I talked about asshat behavior, you might remember the senior vice president I mentioned who mockingly on an open call called my project the biggest loser in the albatross. I never said anything to him on that call. I did a podcast about it. I wrote about it. It makes for a great story, but I didn't confront him right then and there. So aside from the fact that I was just almost laughing because he had such gall, and I knew that I knew other people had complained and knew there were people on the phone call that were like me thinking, are you freaking kidding me? But I also knew he was not a badass leader and that he would not be receptive to a lot of pushback. I wasn't as woke as I am today either. In any case, we do respond to different leaders in different ways, and we can at least be aware of that spectrum of what's out there, right? So here are Beth Anne Campbell's 6 leadership types and how to deal with them. High level and generally in order from worst to best, although in the middle you can probably flip a few around there. So the first, and I think the worst, is the dictator, also known as the egomaniac, the asshole in chief, the braggart, insecurity wearing makeup, the walking skid mark, the card carrying bully, and the self-absorbed asshole. The dictator has an ego the size of Africa, and they mask their insecurity by constantly mentioning their accomplishments. Not a meeting or call goes by that will talk about how much they bring in sales, or how tight they are with the president of the company, or how they put in 30 hours of work over the weekend. They openly mock and berate employees on calls or in meetings. They cut people off. They talk excessively and often loudly. They deflect blame, never take accountability for anything negative. And there's a clear hierarchy of respect with the dictator. They will allow disagreement or pushback from similar people who are at or above them on the org chart, but everybody else, no. They are, in most cases, the very definition of asshat. The dictator's main weakness is that they are very weak and insecure inside, so hence the outward silverback ape brouhaha to make sure let everybody know how powerful they are. Here's a hint. If you have to tell people how powerful you are, you probably aren't at all. So the dictator's rants, they can be embarrassing and awkward, but they don't even notice that because they're so full of themselves. Now, if you work for a dictator, one of the best ways to deal with them is by using some of the techniques I talked about in the office asshat session, which I believe was day 5. Silent pauses, asking them to repeat their inappropriate words or do it for them, play dumb, speak lower, call them out. The dictator is one of the most difficult types to deal with because they're literally like internally paralyzed with their own insecurity, and they will do anything to mask it, or sometimes they're just narcissists. If you work for one, my condolences, get out as fast as you can. I believe from my experience, the dictator type is the least ready, willing, and able to actually change themselves. So it's kind of a lost cause. All right, number 2, leadership type. Sergeant, just do your job. Also known as the authoritarian, captain's 70-hour work week, and his or her old schoolness. Sergeant, just do your job, expects their subordinates, and they will use the word subordinate, to follow orders and processes without question. While the rest of the world strives for a work-life balance, the sergeant expects their team members to routinely work super long days. 40 hours a week? Pff, screw that shit. Sarge works 60 minimum, and so should everybody else. Actually had an authoritarian say that to me once. The Sarge will shut down any mention of changing processes or procedures that have been long in place, because those tried and true approaches, they've worked for years, so why mess with them now? And if you push back, you're disloyal. And loyalty is important. It is presumed with the Sarge. He's been around, or she's been around, mostly a he, but sometimes a she, has been around for a long time. They know what's best. And if you challenge them, you challenge their very status as a so-called leader. They don't need to earn your trust. You should just trust because they have an important title or they make more money than you. And a lot of people put up with it because they think that's normal. But more and more these days, especially with the young folks, thank you, people are rebelling against the sergeant, just do your job. And for that, I am forever grateful. Keep doing it, Gen Z. If you work for the sergeant, you'll have to fight to not work more than 40 hours in a week. You'll have to set boundaries and you'll have to really stick to them. If you have a mild version of the Sarge, you can usually cope. You can just feign respect and then limit your sarcasm, swearing, passion, pushing back, all elements of having any kind of a work life. Fake it till you make it. That might work. And sometimes you can get around requesting those perks, like, work-life balance, by incorporating those requests into goals or performance tracking, because the Sarge loves those. So if you can just I'll put it into my goals and my performance tracking, then maybe you can get away with it. Sometimes the Sarge isn't a bad person. They're just very set in their ways and resistant to change. And if you can be the conduit to making a big change easier and less disrupting, then you're going to gain some points. If that doesn't work, consider getting the heck out of there, which is probably what I'm going to say for most of these. All right, number 3, the control freak. The control freak. Also known as the micromanager, his or her excessiveness, the watcher, the productivity admin, the anti-delegator, the presentation overhauler, and the warden of work. So the control freak will ask you to do something, but then when you don't respond to their email or their message, like in 2 minutes, they'll just do it themselves. They pretend to delegate, but if you don't react fast enough, again, they just do it themselves because they already know how to do it. And of course, they can do it better and faster than anybody. And when they do concede to delegate, maybe like somebody above them said, you have to, right? They don't ever really give up control. They follow up, they overhaul, they take over. They generally have to control the message at every turn. The control freak probably came up through the ranks as one of those overachievers. They built a career saying yes to everything and they're very reliable. I know, because I kind of was one. They were like a self micromanager first, and then they passed on that legacy when they got their first leadership role. They have no concept of empowerment. The universe will collapse into a singularity if they ever do that. And the control freak is one of the least liked leadership types because people hate being micromanaged. It's just sometimes it's just insulting. So if you report to the control freak, you can make it a little bit better by following up with your boss on everything that you do. And I mean everything. If you can't get to something right away, follow up and let them know when you can get to it. Respond immediately because that's what they would do. There is a bonus to this type of manager. If the control freak asks, I've actually done this before. If the control freak asks you to do something that you hate or don't know how to do or just don't want to do, just ignore the request. They'll probably just do it themselves, and then you can save tons of time. And then you can use that time doing the job of your peer who quit 3 months ago and was never backfilled. I've actually done this I did this to a boss once, so I just would not respond and then it would just get taken care of. So there you go. Number 4 leadership type, the gutless wonder, also known as the ghoster, his or her weakness, the lord or lady of wimp, namby-pamby, sap, sissy, mollycoddle, invertebrate, jellyfish, cream puff. My favorite, how the hell are they a manager? The gutless wonder will throw somebody under the bus rather than stand up for that person or speak out. They can't deal with anybody disagreeing with them or even gently correcting the most minor of things that they might have done or said wrong. Even asking a clarifying question can be triggering. Gutless tends to exclude, ghost, and cancel, and when you do interact with them, which is rare, they tend to be awkward and authoritarian because they don't have the confidence to be wrong or to have somebody smarter than them working for them, and they don't have the ego of the dictator to compensate for their insecurity with loud bullying. So often the gutless wonder does their dirty work through somebody else who does have the courage to be challenged. There might be a right-hand man or woman who seems uncomfortably close to the gutless wonder. And this sidekick might even say things that are inappropriate right in front of the gutless wonder, like about you or about people. And gutless wonder will say nothing because they're happy to have the attention on somebody else and they don't have the backbone to stick up for anybody. With the gutless wonder, it's easy to start slacking off because you find yourself excluded from things that you shouldn't be excluded from. Make sure that you keep rocking it the way you always do. You're smarter than them and a better leader than them, so they might be trying to get rid of you. The gutless wonder also promises the world, like if you've ever had somebody say, a pay raise for sure, promotion, but let's look at that next year. Like it always keeps getting pushed out. And you can try and snuggle up to the sidekick to make things better, but be on alert because they are not your friend. They will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat, and they're probably running the show, and they like it that way. So, all right, number 5, the eager wanna-beaver, also known as my okay boss, the box checker, Mr. or Ms. I read a leadership book once, Chief Mediocre, or Sir and Madam, almost there but not quite. The eager wanna-beaver could be a great leader, but mostly they just check the boxes without any real passion. You can't say they're a bad boss or manager, but you can't say they're a really good one or a great one. They try, but they fall short. They might champion for their team for a short while or at a lower level, but if upper management pushes back, they're done, or rather you, the employee, are done. The eager wanna-beaver seems to know a lot about what good leadership is. They read a lot of books on leadership and they can quote Brené Brown and Simon Sinek and Ted Lasso, but they fall short on execution. They listen, but they don't hear. They empower, but only with the low-hanging fruit. Oh, did I just say low-hanging fruit? That's like such a jargon. They act like they trust you and they want to trust you, but they aren't really quite ready to trust you. They don't really take risks. And while they don't get paralyzed when something goes like colossally wrong, nor do they step up and grow from it. It feels like they're trying to be transparent with the team, but when you really think about it, you don't get much information at all. You find yourself asking questions like, do you think they knew about this? Like when something bad happens, and they probably did. And they won't throw you under the bus, but if you're being unfairly treated or take a stand on something noble and it backfires, they will always cooperate with those above them on the corporate ladder, always. The good thing about the eager wannabeaver is they like having smart, successful team members because it makes their job easier and they can shine through you. They won't step in front of a corporate bullet for you, but they'll give you a warning that it's coming, and then later they'll cooperate fully with the investigation because that's what they're supposed to do. And finally, we have the badass leader, the Kal or Khaleesi of the Great Leadership Sea, the supreme god or goddess of transparency, breaker of silence, the empowerer, servant leader, best boss ever. I can describe the badass leader by describing the traits of my first few bosses. They have your back, always. They're not threatened by your badassery, so be as amazing as you can. They embody the concepts of Ted Lasso, Brené Brown, and Simon Sinek. They hear you and they respond with empathy. They try to figure out what keeps you happy and fulfilled, and then they work to make that happen. They are as transparent with their team as they legally and ethically can be. They will give you the biggest, highest profile assignments because they trust you to own it, and they trust you to let them know if you need help. They're okay with making mistakes, and they're a safe space for you to go when you screw up. You can challenge them and disagree, and they listen. Sometimes you don't get your way, but you always feel like they heard you. They tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, and they encourage you to do the same with them. And they don't make promises they can't keep. If you deserve a promotion and a raise, you're going to get it. Somebody higher up is going to have to say no because badass leader, they're not going to stop trying. You'll know if you have a badass leader because you'll find yourself on a Facebook Live talking about them with fond memories and utter gratitude for the many lessons that they taught you. It is so easy to deal with the badass leader. Just be your awesome self. If you need help, they're there for you and with you. If you're rocking it, they're your biggest cheerleader. It really is a wonderful place to be. So there you have it. Beth Anne Campbell's 6 leadership types. So which ones have you experienced? Which one are you if you're a leader? Tell me about your leadership experience in the comments. All right, no comments today on a Monday. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about gratitude. Believe it or not, expressing gratitude is one of the best ways to lift your spirits, to open your mind to new ideas, and cope with your work shit show and to make the work shit show better. It sounds cliche, but it's 100% true. The more that you're grateful for, the more that you will have to be grateful for. So I'm looking forward to that one. And also gratitude in my top 5 of reasons why you're not finding the fulfillment that you need. So hopefully I haven't said more than 5 top 5s, but I don't think so. Anyway, don't forget to connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn if you're not already. Thank you for joining Get Out of the Rat Race Rut. You're here because you're a badass. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. See you tomorrow.